ultimately, when you fail, it's about taking the time to hang around and take the feedback. And in many cases, people won't get the job. Oh, okay, I don't want it. In many cases, a lot of companies are very bad at giving people feedback, and people really feel as if they have been burnt because they've invested that time.
Welcome to the LMF Network podcast. My name is Sonya Barlow, the host, CEO and founder. This podcast is all about building our careers and confidence with a mission to build the careers and confidence of 25,000 people by 2025 through mentoring, masterclasses, and meaningful connections. For us, this podcast is about sharing stories, highlighting incredible figures, learning about their career journeys, how they overcome failure, rejection, and imposter syndrome, what we can do to build our confidence, be our biggest cheerleaders, and really define as well as achieve our version of success. And today's podcast is very special because we have our partner Taboola in the house. We're talking to Ollie Davies about all things recruitment, interviews, career hacks, and most importantly, how he shuffled his way into the industry. So Ollie, welcome to our session.
Thanks for having me. It's a lovely setup. Unfortunately, I haven't brought the weather with me, but
that's okay. It wouldn't be the UK if it wasn't a little bit grey, a little bit moody, a little bit dull. So Ollie, tell us more about what you do, how you got into what you're doing, and most importantly, the skills that you're using in your role.
Yeah, okay. So I currently head up the European recruitment function for Taboola, so covering all of our offices across France, Italy, Spain, everything EMEA bound, basically. So I'm managing a team, so mentoring a team within Taboola, but also running our recruitment strategy. So how I got into recruitment is they always say those who can do, those who can't recruit. So my path was went to university, but I ensured that I had some form of sort of sales background. So every time I'd come back between terms, I was always picking up some form of sort of sales bound role. And once I graduated, I was looking at becoming a teacher. So I learned the key fundamentals of coaching, of mentoring, of writing out strategies and coaching plans. And just found that I didn't have the money to go into teaching at that time. I'd come back, I needed to earn some money relatively quickly. So I started looking for recruitment jobs or business development jobs, and found that I was more geared towards the recruitment because of the coaching, the mentoring, and being able to get buy-in from other individuals. So I was lucky to start my recruitment journey at Real Staffing. Is a huge company owned by S3, so was focusing mainly within pharmaceutical medical device recruitment. From there, through the agency world, developed all the way through into working for end users. So working for companies such as Spotify, working for companies such as Education First, working for companies such as Deliveroo. So really learning how to coach people through their career journeys and get them into companies with the right level of buy-in, understanding their key metrics, understanding what it is that they wanted from the individual.
I think that's really interesting. Maybe this is the first time that I've heard someone say key skills required in recruitment or sales roles are coaching and mentoring. I was under the impression, like many of us, that it's sales, that it's the ability to network, that it's the ability to cold call, that it's quite a hardcore cutthroat industry. And so the vibe of recruitment, I think comparatively to what how you've defined it to how maybe we know when we're looking at roles online or offline, it seems there's a bit of a dissonance.
Yes, yeah, so there's a common misconception within recruitment. So you will have your recruitment agencies. Now, within your recruitment agencies, some of these are run badly, but they really encourage quick turnover. You're basically trying to pay for the desk that you're working at. And this is where you will tend to find that people get their fingers burnt by recruiters, because these individuals are and not all agencies are like this, but this is the common where people get the bad interactions with recruitment. Now, what you'll tend to find is when you're working for a company such as Taboola or a Spotify, is that you are then part of the talent brand. So you're very much representing the brand, representing the culture, and ultimately you're a culture bearer. So you're looking to see, does this individual match the ethos and match what you represent as a business? And these are things that people can very much easily buy into and can learn. But then there's also the harder skills in terms of, can you do what the job or what the company is looking for you to do? So it's recruitment and talent management are two very much different things. And what you'll tend to find is when trying to get into an end user, a company like Taboola or Spotify or any of these other businesses, is you will be interacting with a talent partner who's very much part of that HR team. So they're very much looking to build that relationship.
The fact you've said culture carrier, it's like I'm learning all these new phrases in this episode, but culture carrier. Now, playing devil's advocate, there is obviously in the diversity inclusion space a big, I would say, conflict or tug of war between culture fit, culture carrier, culture value add. Is it values? Is it culture? Where are we on the spectrum? As an individual who's hiring for a business, how do you find that fine balance between they're a part of the culture, which we've set up on the ethos, but they also align with our values, but they're also a little bit disruptive and they're bringing something new into the mix?
Look, that's again a great question. So if you look at the interview structure, different levels of the interview are created to expose this individual to different scenarios, different conversations. And this is where we're looking to try and find the key fundamentals within this individual. Now, from a HR TA perspective, we will do the background conversation around the businesses that you worked at. Why did you work there? What did you do there? What is it that you achieved there? What is it that you're proud of? What is it that you enjoyed doing? So one of the key things for us is almost to go back through and see what this individual is about and what their main motivators are. There are the push and the pull factors. So are you looking for more money? Are you money driven? Is that all you're looking for? And is that what we can offer within this position? Or what's pulling you to this position, that you've always wanted to work with the brand or us as a business? So in many cases, we're trying to identify what drives this individual, whilst then exposing them to the different factors of the business who have those different motivators. So a peer will be looking for someone that they can work with. Have you had these experiences? How much support do they need to give you? What is it that you've been able to do and how you've interacted with them? Cross-functionally, the business will look at how you like to, what your style is, who you are as an individual. Are you introverted, extroverted? Are you someone who thrown into a situation can adapt and basically get to the end point? And then lastly is, are you someone who can fundamentally do the job?
Yeah. And before we get into general recruitment and how individuals can bulk up their CV and career hacks, I want to understand more about you and your career journey. So you've mentioned that you've worked with some cool companies, Spotify, Taboola, Deliveroo. Which one had the best perks?
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to say Taboola.
Oh my God, really?
I'm going to have to say Taboola. So working at Spotify was great. They had everyone says, they had a pool table, or they had this, but in Spotify they had a games room. They had, certainly in Sweden, they had an area where bands would come in and potentially play. They had amazing lunches, so the free lunches that you'd have. Deliveroo again. I
feel like free food is really important when you're thinking about a job role and what company to work for. That can at least be a driver.
Well,
right?
Look, I think a lot of people look for some perks within the business, but then a lot of other people get very frustrated at. They now feel as if they're being offered things that should be a standard.
Yes.
So I do feel that different generations, have different conceptions of what it is that should be provided, should be provided to them. So one thing at Taboola that we are incredibly blessed with is every lunchtime you have a £10 budget, so that you can order your food from Just Eat, which is great.
And you have a snacks cupboard.
But we don't have a snacks cupboard. We have a snacks cupboard.
I know, because there is a video somewhere of me, somewhere on the internet, where I've gone into Taboola snack cupboard with Susie, who's on one of our episodes. And I've just been like, what the hell is this? Why have I not worked here before? And I'm like an absolute foodie. But it's small things like that where I think as a perk, as someone who has gone through the interviewing opportunities, these are the tiny perks I think that differentiate a company from another.
Well, look, Adam, our CEO, is incredibly family orientated, and as an Israeli-based founded company, based in the sense our headquarters is there. When I joined, I was given a Taboola cookbook. You were given Taboola pajamas. You were given other fantastic perks. But funnily enough, I'm actually wearing the Taboola socks that they gave me. So on sock days. But
Well, I hope as a partner that I get some of these Taboola things, because I'm sitting here being like, Taboola pajamas, and then I'm thinking LMF pajamas. So my merch brain is just going a little bit wild now.
But I do think one of the amazing things that Adam has created is we see the breakfast, because we have an amazing breakfast buffet. We have an amazing lunch. We have amazing sort of social events where everyone is encouraged to get together during the day. And that's one thing that Spotify were very serious about as well, is no matter how busy you are, is they want people to get along and to talk with people, not just from your day-to-day, not just from your desk, is they want people to be able to think cross-functionally. They want people to be able to understand what your blocks are, because in many aspects of Taboola, if you are an account manager, you will be interacting with the sales team, the product team, the HR team, and so on and so forth. So the ability to work cross-functionally and be intellectually empathetic is one thing, of understanding how you can put yourself in someone else's shoes and how you can take the task or the project forward.
Yeah, I just watched the Spotify documentary on Netflix. Have you seen it?
I haven't, no.
It was super cool. But it got me thinking, especially with the other brands that you're sharing. And again, go back to Ollie. And I guess it's a general question that many of us ask ourselves, is how do you know when you're ready to move from one company to another? So you've moved from Spotify, Deliveroo now to Taboola. I'm sitting there thinking these are big brands on your CVs. They come with their own level of clout, their own level of competitive edge, the skills that you're learning, the experience that you have, the people that you're with, they all come with their own biases as well. How did you know that it was ready to shift? And what does that process look like for you whilst you're in the recruitment game? Because you know how the minds of recruiters work, therefore.
Yeah, very good question. I think each company had their own challenges and in many cases had their own particular projects. So the one thing that I really bought into is Brett Underhill, who is my boss. When I met her, is there is a long-term roadmap and long-term strategy that I really bought into, both from we've said culture a lot of times here, but both from culturally, both from an infrastructural TA perspective. So I really bought into what the business was trying to build operationally. Now, the reason for looking at moving is each role has with them their challenges, but I'm very self-reflective as to what am I learning. I'd like to think I'm very good at taking feedback. I'm very good at not jumping to the defensive when someone says, okay, and gives you some constructive criticism as to how you're perceived or how you're achieving what it is that you're trying to achieve. So from a Spotify and a Deliveroo perspective, is each of those projects for me, because the project is myself, is I felt that it was the right time in terms of my personal development to take that next step. Each role had their own individual challenge, and to a degree I felt I'd completed that challenge and was ready for that next step in my own personal development and responsibilities. When
we shared that we were going to do this episode on TikTok, especially, and Instagram, we had an influx of questions come in. And one question that came in is, when therefore going through the hiring process, what are some of the red flags that candidates should look out for? And what should you be doing about those red flags? So what I mean by that is, as an example, one of my really close friends is interviewing for a level up role, but between interview rounds, the company she's talking to takes about 6 weeks. And there's about 3 rounds. So she's made it really clear that she doesn't have 3 months to wait for a company end to end, because she's hungry and she's ambitious and she's ready for her career development. That for her is a big red flag, and she's voiced that. But I think that comes after years of experience, because you wouldn't be able to voice that in year 1. It probably is like year 5 or so. So what are some red flags that we should be looking out for, and how do we give ourselves the power to actually, stand up for ourselves?
Yeah, look, I think first things first is research the company. In many different industries, they are unapologetic about the length of their process. If you take, for example, there's always the famous story within one of the major banks that someone had to meet 25 rounds of interviews.
That's wild.
Within senior execs. And if they received one no, then it was a no. So different companies hold these different auras about them. But any recruitment organization I've worked for will have a structured interview process. And this is where I will always say to the candidate, there should be an element of you interviewing me as much as me interviewing you. And that isn't to say that you're going to put me on the back foot. When I ask you, do you have any questions? I want the individual to be asking me relevant questions, A, about the company, B, about the role, and C, about the interview process. So just imagine if we've got an hour's interview and we have got 5 more minutes left, and I ask you, have you got any questions? I look for someone who is prepared to ask me, or has taken the time to ask me 3 questions on each of them, so we can go through. And worst case is either I will indicate that the hiring manager can answer those questions at the next stage, or I can give them direct feedback in regards to how it is that they've done. I would ask your friend to do some research on the company, do some research on the level of position, and try and validate. To me, it doesn't sound as if there's an open role there. Now, this is where...
What does that even mean? Stop it. What do you mean there's no open role? Why would a company put a role out that's not open? So it's not something that... I feel like these are the secrets of recruitment that we're now spilling.
But the thing, as it sounds to me, is if something is taking 3 months for them to try and land on something for the individual, I would ask the question is, why is it taking the company so long? It shouldn't take that long in my opinion, unless it's a super senior position. So back to the original sort of answer, validate, ask the question, what are the rounds? And if they're taking 3 months to come back, that would tell me, reading between the lines, that the candidate A isn't the only one in the process, or B, the business isn't serious about hiring that individual. So they're the red flags.
To be honest with you, I think with the amount of tech layoffs right now and the amount of people being made redundant and just general job losses, that's actually really reassuring. I know so many people that be watching this being like, okay, Ollie, you work for a business. This is the work that you do. The fact that you've shared that is reassuring because it's not personal. And a lot of the time we take it personally. We're like, personally, they haven't got back to us, or they're not vibing with us. Or I know when I get ghosted, I go on people's LinkedIns. I'm like, but I can see that you're online. I can see that you're posting. I'm going to comment. I remember once, and recruitment for me is different. The interview process is different because I run a business. So now what that looks like is taking clients out, getting partners involved, being in a process where you aren't the only company who wants to work with a business, and actually pitching yourself for that role, whatever that might look like. I remember once, this was a few years ago, there was a really big company that really wanted to work with us. And this was the final stage. And they took us out for breakfast. By us, I actually mean me. They took me out for breakfast. We sat there for like 3 hours. We even had each other's laptops and this
my main contact, they like put all the proposal in an email with the budget. They signed it off. They were like, yeah, we're good to go. I think it was just before Christmas. And I was like, oh my God, this is an early Christmas present. And then I never heard from them. Never. And I was like, hold on. You took me out for breakfast. You signed the dotted line. You emailed me all the information. But I can see you're online on LinkedIn. I can see you're posting on people's, I can see you're engaging with people's comments. I can see you're posting on the channel. And I remember I tried to gauge with them. But eventually, maybe my ego got in the way. Maybe I just didn't feel like I wanted to do it anymore. I just took a step back. And that's like a prime example of just being ghosted. And it does happen. And the more that we go online, especially, you know, with the virality of social media, people going through job process are thinking about, why am I ghosted? What is ghosting even? Like, how do I shy away from being ghosted?
No one should ever be ghosted. Okay, so
the person that ghosted me, I hope you're listening to this.
So just to be clear, is my team or any work that we do specifically within Taboola is when you engage with the talent acquisition team is let's go through the processes. If you apply for a role and you're not suited to that position, you will receive an email back telling you or indicating that you're not suited to that position. Now, in many roles that we have, we can have upwards of 200-300 applicants.
Okay, for one role.
For one position.
Okay.
There are others where we'll have one or two. So depending on the type of position. And this is where the interactions you have with a recruiter will indicate on the size of the talent pool, how special are you in terms of your skill set. So many of the roles we have are language speaking positions.
Yes.
So we know for a fact that many of these native language speaking positions, there are a handful of people who are able to do the role. Whereas other positions, there's a huge talent pool where people are inbound, are knocking on those doors. Now, if you imagine you're a brand that people want to work with, in many cases, people will apply and won't be suited to a position. They'll receive an automated response because someone has seen your profile and they have said, look, you're not suited to the position, best of luck. Now, if you interview with a talent partner, they will then go through your experiences. And the idea of going through your experiences is that you are able to highlight what it is that you've done within your career. So I would always advise using the STAR methodology. This is the situation, the task, the action, the result. Okay. So have a think about what you've done within your career.
And with the STAR methodology, is it 25% each letter or is it weighted differently? So an example being, I always think that actually the action, the result is weighted more or should be where you spend more of your efforts than telling me about the situation, the task.
I would always want to know what the action and what the result was.
Yeah.
So I would recommend painting a picture of, let's, for example, use a project that you've worked on. The situation was I needed to come and record a podcast or a video. The task was to find who, the what, the where, and the action was we came on the day, I wrote out a project plan, we delivered all of this, and the result was we released this video. So you're giving someone the context of what the challenges were of what it is that you've achieved and why that is relevant to the role. Now, secondly, what I would always advise candidates to do is to look at the job spec and underneath each of the requirements of the role, write out a STAR example. So what you're able to do is you're able to talk about what you've done that relates into the position. Okay. Now, a lot of people is they will just start talking about themselves and will go down that rabbit hole. Now, being able to sell yourself is unfortunately a skill that people need to develop. So this is where the recruiter's here to try and take out key examples of what you've done within your career. But what you should be doing is trying to give yourself the best chance of highlighting what you've done that's relevant to the position and how you understand the company itself.
And that brings me on to our next question. Again, thank you for everyone who's sending in questions. You can just email hello@lmfnetwork.com or tag us at LMF Network. The questions that are coming through, based on exactly what you've said, is, okay, so we've got this job role, we really want to apply, we're super serious about working for X company. How do we stand out from the crowd? How do we make our CV look great? Do we need to really work on our LinkedIn profile? What about our general personal and social brand? Does that impact what recruiters are thinking about us? So it'll be great if you could give us some top tips as to how we can stand out from the crowd online and offline.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I would recommend on your LinkedIn profile is obviously completing it to 100%. Many people don't do that. But again, a common misconception is what people will do is they will fill out what the business does. And underneath, think of your LinkedIn profile as your online presence, as your CV. Fill out the projects that you have done. Fill out the things that you have achieved. Fill out the things that you have got to. Now, if you're in a sales position, for example, what did you contribute to? Talk numbers. Talk about what it is that you've grown, what it is that you've achieved, and how it is that you've got there. Talk about some of the initiatives and things that you've done. I know that what your business does. Okay, I know what the business you've worked for does. What have you done? Okay, so have a think. And now in many aspects, people want to develop as quickly as possible, but you don't want to build that house on rocky foundations. So what we're looking for is we're looking for someone who has taken the time in their own personal development. How have you learned? What have you done that's gone outside of just the role that you're working in? Now, again, this LMF is a prime example. You've built something fantastic here, okay? You've taken the time to actually build this, to get in contact with people, to do things. And you're able to highlight that you have built these relationships, you've delivered on projects. So not everyone has to have an LMF, for example, but we're looking for someone who has the ability to go above and beyond and be able to think about their own personal development. So what my team would do when we're interviewing is we would ask, okay, give me an example where you've done this within your career. Someone would obviously use the STAR methodology, give that example, but then it's always great if someone says, and also secondly, in my own personal time, I've been doing external reading, or I'm educating on something else, or I'm doing something else here. So you're showing the initiative of A, you're looking at learning on your own time. B, you're looking at going above and beyond in terms of your own personal development. And C, you understand what it is able to help you stand out. So that's a few key things, but it's ultimately think about your LinkedIn profile, think about your online presence, and think about your own self-development. What can you do to better yourself? This Christmas, I've read a number of different books in terms of how I can improve my management style, or how I can improve my communication skills. So think about your areas that need developing. Look at yourself in the mirror and have a think about what your strengths are, but what are your weaknesses, and how can you constructively develop your weaknesses.
You've obviously spoken about the STAR methodology, you've spoken about interview practice, you've spoken about being ghosted, building out your profile, generally what skills are required, especially in your role. But let me ask you a question. Give us a time where you've been rejected and how you overcame that failure. This is a really standard question that I think from a competency-based interview people do have, they ask. But at the same time, rejection is one of those things that we're really afraid of, right? Rejection, I think failure is like, alongside breathing, the most inevitable thing that's going to happen to us. We're so, in some ways we're rejected all the time, and other ways we shy away from it. I know personally I'm really good at failing, and I'm rejected for everything. I basically, the first time, but I know that's going to happen. So I'm like, right, let me get rejected really quickly. Let me fail really quickly. Let me just get it out of the way. This podcast included, right? The first 5 was just like, let's just do it. Let's push it out and let's learn from our mistakes. The LMF brunch, Same way. No one actually came for the first three things, but here we are in the end.
You're learning from your mistakes. I think
I'm learning from my mistakes.
That's a crucial thing that you've said there. Is a lot of people don't hang around to understand how they failed or why they failed.
Okay, that's really interesting.
So one of the key questions, if I ever interview someone, I will always ask someone, give me an example where you failed within your career and what it is that you've learned from it. Now, I'm not looking for someone to point the finger as to whose fault it was.
But at the same time, you seem like a recruiter baddie. What I mean is, like, when we think of recruiters, recruitment, hiring managers, you are the
gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper. Like, you genuinely, I've always felt this too, and maybe I'm glad that we're having this conversation because it feels like it's debunking a lot. But I'm like, Ollie's the gatekeeper. He doesn't want me to work here. He wants me to fail. And then you ask a question like, give us a time where you failed. And I'm like, okay, I need to spin this in my head, and then I need to tell you a time where I failed, but actually I really achieved because I need to look better. And that's how you're basically taught at a school level to, like, flip your answers. You know, it's like, what's your weakness? I'm like, my weakness is I like to get too involved.
Well, I think if at any point I'm seen as the baddie, then I'm not doing my job correctly. Let's just sort of clarify that. But as a TA professional, okay, or if I take this from a self-reflection and answer your first question of where have I failed, is I fail every single week. I have my monthly or weekly, monthly and quarterly objectives and key results. So what I basically do is, like, how am I going to achieve what I want to achieve this week, this month, this quarter, this year, this 3 years, this 5 years. So okay. I have my own plan as to where I want to be and how I want to get there. And that sort of answers your previous question as well as to why I've moved on, is because I felt I've got to a certain point and I've outgrown, and where I am at Taboola, there's so much to go out and so much to do. But in terms of where I failed is I look to try and overreach for something. I look to try and get to where I need to go and be able to identify when something isn't working and be able to take those 2 steps back, learn from it, and then continue to move forward without breaking anything. But a key element for failing is you don't want to put all your eggs into one basket. Because when you do, and when you fail, you break all your eggs and you've got no other options. So the key thing from my perspective is that what you're doing is you should be prepared to be self-reflective on yourself. Now, if you feel that you should have achieved something, you should have got something, then that's naturally different to not getting there and not achieving it. But from my perspective is I failed in my career at many things. I had a project once that I was in charge of. I was too headstrong to admit that I needed any support. I overextended myself, and ultimately, I got too emotional with it. I was too bought in, and I was too close to it. And a leader basically told me to take a step back, take a breath. The world's still spinning, everything's still working. What have we learned from this? How can we fix this? And how can we take our best step forward? So I think ultimately, when you fail, it's about taking the time to hang around and take the feedback. And in many cases, people won't get the job. Oh, okay, I don't want it. In many cases, a lot of companies are very bad at giving people feedback, and people really feel as if they have been burnt because they've invested that time. Now, if we relate this back to being a talent partner, we have set up a structure in which once you get into so deep within the interview process that you should be receiving detailed feedback. Now, the feedback is for you to obviously take on and to listen to. In many cases, people say, I don't agree with that feedback. Okay, but this is what we're trying to give you as a constructive. And in many cases, we've rehired someone 12, 18, 24 months later because we've given them feedback. We've told them what they need to develop on. We've told them the areas that they maybe don't have, and they've gone away and developed that skill set. So I think I always say you should always be nice to people on the way up, because on your career journey, you'll never know who you'll need or where you'll interact with them again. And the only thing you are in control of is your own personal brand and how you develop. And if you go around being too headstrong to take that feedback, again, that's one of the red flags that we look for. Okay. So I think it's important for businesses to buy into the giving people this feedback. And it's not too much to ask for you as a candidate to say, okay, may I have some feedback? What was it that I didn't do, or what was it I could learn from? In many cases, a recruiter should be able to give you that. And certainly if you're getting to a hiring manager stage, the hiring manager should be able to give you some form of feedback as to what they liked, what they think are key developments, and how you can improve.
What are the top 3 interview questions that you ask candidates that we should encourage candidates to go and build up their answers for?
My questions are, I like to understand where someone has failed in their career, or where someone has, so give me an example where something hasn't worked. Can they give me a detailed answer as to what the issue was without pointing fingers and blaming someone else? Are they able to self-reflect and look at themselves and show that they can take accountability for what it was that didn't work? Empathy. So is the individual able to put themselves in the other person's shoes? So you don't always get along with everyone when you're dealing with a project, or you maybe disagree with what direction you should go in. So can the individual show that they're able to present data and they've A/B tested? So they've said they've given data as to their example, as to the other example, and they've come to a conclusion. But then secondly, they're able to put themselves in the other person's perspective. You don't know what the other person's going through. You don't know what the other person is, where they're coming from, and how can you get to a resolution? And then lastly, is this individual able to show examples of where they've had to pivot on the spot, where they've had to adapt to something that's changed? So a lot of my questions are about the nitty-gritty of the individual. So that's where, as the culture carrier for the businesses I work for, you're trying to get in and understand who this individual is, and what it is that they've done. The harder skills and their examples, people will talk you through and will give you examples, but I'm here to look at the human perspective of the individual.
And you've obviously mentioned Taboola, and this is the Taboola episode. So my final question to you is, what makes Taboola a great place to work?
I love the collaborative nature of the business. So I know, without that being a complete cliche, is there's many situations where you're thrown a curveball or something is presented to you, and the individuals that I work with are all able to pivot on the spot and to be able to throw their weight behind something. We're working on multiple strategies. We're working on improving the TA function and the business. And then I love the collaboration that we have with the other departments. So I'm working with the other diversity groups within the business. For example, I've got exposure to the LGBT plus community, the Taboola Her, the Taboola Black, and the other groups that we're working with. And I love the fact that it's not a clique, and that as a white male, I'm able to be included, and I'm able to work with them, and they're able to listen to my opinion, and I'm valued, and I just love that collaborative piece. So I really do enjoy the people I work with, and I've touched upon it several times, and it'll probably be the hashtag, the culture carrier, is that I look for people who are able to help take us forward in our culture, and that's what I love about Taboola.
And those who are watching, if they're interested in applying for jobs at Taboola, getting in contact with you directly, understanding what careers are on offer, where can they find that information?
Yeah, so we've got our Taboola careers page. Naturally, I will include my details with yourself, Sonya, and I'm sure there'll be a link in terms of my contact details. But I would encourage people to go to our Taboola careers page. to have a look at a number of the roles that we run. Now, I appreciate there will be people who will have a look at some of these positions and say, oh, you know, I can't do this, or this is what is that it's asking for certain elements that I don't have. We do run more often than not multiple sort of intern positions that people can apply for, and we do and we'll be running an intern day later on in the year. In terms of some of the more sort of seasoned professionals, you can actually have a look at our careers page, and if you feel that you've got any transferable skills, we will have that conversation with you. But ultimately, if you're looking for an opportunity, feel free to connect with me. So what I like to do is not only sharing the Taboola careers, is I like to share other opportunities within the other individuals that I've got from other companies. So I would give people advice if they're looking for a role in Taboola, look on our careers page, get in contact with me. If you're looking for roles within other companies, connect with these recruiters. In many cases, they use their LinkedIn as a job page. They will post relevant content, and network. I have passed on individuals to different companies, and if there's anything I can ever help with, I'm always here to help. I'm a big believer in networking.
And my final question is, as you are one of LMF's partners this year, what made you want to work with us? And what are you liking about our partnership so far?
I love the network that you held. I love the diversity of the network. I love the diversity of both the ethnicity of obviously the like-minded females piece. Is I've got 3 sisters, 2 daughters. Used to have my nans and aunties all living around, so I do very much feel as if I'm a culture carrier for the gender diverse side of things. So it's something I feel very passionately about being able to help give people a platform. And to give people the encouragement and the confidence that they need to be able to put themselves out there, and don't be worried about what they can't do. Have a look at what you can do and that personal development. And in terms of what it was specifically about the partnership that I've liked, is that you're giving me this platform to be able to give my knowledge back. This is very much, from my perspective, an intro to your network. I see this as the first of many conversations. I would love to hear from people out there what it is that they would like to learn, and how it is that we can guide them through that. But ultimately is I want to make sure that people can take their best step forward. And this is what I love that you've given me the opportunity to do. I don't want it to be a character assassination as everything that TA's done badly or the experiences they've had, but let's look at things constructively, and I can help paint that picture, and we can help run some workshops as to how you can get interview ready.
Absolutely, and we definitely will do that. So in terms of what we've got coming up, we've got more podcast episodes with Taboola. We will have some intern days, we'll have some insight days, we'll have some workshops that we're delivering, and we'll have a lot of educational content to help build your confidence and careers. Ollie, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. It's been fantastic. It's looking at the first of many, and thank you for having me.
This is the LMF podcast. You can subscribe by clicking on the link. You can listen back to all our episodes so far. And if you want to get involved, drop me an email, hello@lmfnetwork.com, or tag us in any social posts at LMF Network.
You can learn more about the podcast, get involved and listen via our website, www.lmfnetwork.com. You can follow us across all socials at LMF Network. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and tell a friend. Get involved and drop us your comments or questions so that we can make sure that it's really adding value to your lives.